If you have been following the latest updates surrounding the Boeing 737 MAX, you would know that Boeing's troubles are far from over, and that this year it could deliver a significant blow to the aircraft type. For our viewers who aren't abreast with what's happening, here's a quick recap. The 737 MAX currently flying passengers are the MAX 8 and the MAX 9 variants. The smaller MAX 7 and the larger MAX 10 have seen some delays to their certification. Following the investigation of the two MAX crashes, the United States Congress passed the Aircraft Certification, Safety, and Accountability Act in 2020. Essentially, this legislation mandates that any airplane certified 2 years after its enactment must have a state-of-the-art crew alerting system. So, any aircraft that undergoes certification after December 31, 2022, will need to have a modern system for crew alerts, which the MAX family do not have. The 737 MAX is the only Boeing aircraft not to have a modern crew alerting system, which investigators say could have assisted the crew members of the fatal MAX crashes. Ideally, when the MAX was in the design stage, Boeing should have ensured the flight deck was updated to modern standards of crew alerts, but the company sought an exemption from the FAA, or Federal Aviation Administration, to exclude the MAX from this redesign. Boeing had promised its customers that the MAX would not need their pilots to undergo expensive retraining, and hence, it was keen to maintain commonality to the 737NG as much as possible. If the Boeing 737 MAX 10 is not certified by the end of this year, Boeing will have to significantly invest in resources to develop a crew alerting system, or ICAS, in Boeing terminology, for the MAX 10. Or, the airplane maker may decide to cancel the MAX 10 variant entirely, due to this complexity. Boeing is hoping that the Congress will grant an exemption for the MAX 10, so that it remains identical in terms of the flight deck to other members of the MAX family. And that brings us to the present day, where an independent report commissioned by the Federal Aviation Administration could influence the decision regarding the exemption for the type. The independent report comes from MITRE Corp., a federally funded research organization that supports various government agencies in the aviation, defense and cybersecurity fields among others. A copy of the report was published online by the Seattle Times, which Squawk Cats reviewed. If you would like to go through the report, a link to the file is available in the video description below. To give you a summary, there are two aspects of this report which are important to understand. The first is that this report finds the exemption of the crew alerting system to be a contributory factor to the two MAX crashes, and in a way, influenced Boeing to suppress information about the MCAS software, which was the root cause of the crashes. When talking about an aviation incident or accident, reference is often made to the Swiss cheese model. In the Swiss cheese model, a company's defenses against failure are modeled as a series of barriers, which are represented as slices of cheese. The holes in the cheese slices represent weaknesses in individual parts of the system, and they continually vary in size and position in all slices. If all the holes of all the cheese slices are aligned, hazards enter the system and invariably end with an undesired situation, which in aviation is an accident or serious incident. As per the report, Boeing wanting to quickly put the MAX into service at minimal cost to operators lead to the aircraft continuing without a modern crew alerting system. As the design of the aircraft progressed, and when engineers realized a software such as the MCAS was required, Boeing wanted to limit disclosure of the system so as to continue with the narrative of the aircraft being similar to the older 737. Instead, had the FAA not granted an exception for the crew alerting system of the MAX, the report says that Boeing would have been forced to redesign the flight deck of the aircraft, and through this, the company would have been transparent about all the changes including the MCAS it had made over the 737NG. By the way, if you are liking this video so far, do consider subscribing to the channel, as it will certainly help us growing our audience even further. Now back to the MAX report. As per the Seattle Times, the FAA said it was reviewing the report, but declined to comment on the crew alerting system. The publication reports that FAA maintains that only Congress can change the deadline or provide an exemption for the MAX 10. The Seattle Times quotes United States Senator for Washington, Maria Cantwell, saying she wants the FAA to provide Congress some direction regarding the exemption for the MAX 10. The FAA must show leadership and tell us what they think is needed for the highest safety standards in light of this report. I look forward to their recommendation, is what the senator said. Likewise, the United States Chair of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, Representative Peter DeFazio, said he urges the FAA to consider the report's recommendations and issue a detailed response. Boeing has not yet released a comment with respect to this report. However, there are a couple of points in this report which would seem favorable for the American plane maker. As per MITRE's report, there is no evidence to show that aircraft certified as derivatives of former types are less safe than brand new type certificate aircraft. The report claims this will only add on to the cost for the manufacturer. Instead, MITRE's proposal requires the FAA to identify safety-critical aspects of an airplane and then allow the manufacturer to negotiate with the regulator as to how each feature is treated in the certification process. However, ultimately, MITRE says the FAA's decision to exempt the MAX from a modern crew alerting system was inherently flawed. The FAA has indicated to Boeing that the MAX 10 certification is unlikely to be completed this year. Compared to the MAX 8 and MAX 9, the MAX 10 sees the inclusion of a third measure of the angle of attack of the jet. This should provide more redundancy and matches its European rival, the Airbus 320's redundancy as far as angle of attack is measured. In addition, pilots of the MAX 10 will be able to silence the stick shaker warning alert, which generally indicates the aircraft is approaching a stall. On the MAX crashes, pilots were confused as the stick shaker was activated through erroneous sensors, whereas the aircraft was not in and not approaching a stall. As we approach the second half of the year, the Congress has to decide whether it will allow the MAX 10 to be exempted. Boeing argues that if it changes the flight deck alerting system on the MAX 10, it could cause more safety issues for pilots who fly other variants of the 737 in addition. Boeing's stance is one where it would want the MAX 10 to receive the exemption and hope to start delivering the aircraft to customers from 2023. What do you think is ultimately going to happen as far as the MAX 10 is concerned? Do you think the Congress will give in to Boeing's request and exempt the aircraft? Or will this be used by the elected officials to tell their voters that they are taking a strict stand towards safety? Do let us know in the comments below, and if you liked this video, do consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching.